Joe's Hot Takes 25. This is season 1. This is episode 13. We're going to talk about nonpartisan politics today. Politics, whoa. Right, left, down the center, I don't know. Welcome to this episode. I'm Joe, I'm your host. So on this podcast, I try to ask questions, provoke thoughts. I aim to leave my opinions out when I can. And just ask the tough questions. I do research to try to support some of the ideas that I share. And like I said, when I can, I like to include personal experiences, but I try to leave out my opinions as much as possible. Today I want to ask questions about our political system. Why do we have Democrats and Republicans? Why do other parties like independents and libertarians have seemingly little to no influence? Or do they? Do we need this division in our political system? Can democracy function with nonpartisan elections? So these are the questions that I'm going to be diving into today. And like I say, we've got a little bit of research in here. Let's talk about it. Let's get the juices flowing. Let's get the thoughts provoked. And let's see if we can fix things. So I think to start out, we have to start with what is nonpartisan or no-party democracy? What does that mean? So nonpartisan democracy, that's also known as no-party democracy, and that is a system of representative government where the universal and periodic elections take place without reference to political parties. There's no parties. Wait, no parties? No hardline divisions between the extreme left and the extreme right? What would that even look like? That's interesting. So we could do this. We can do this as a non-party democracy, I believe. The increasing political divide, we need to talk about that. Look at this division. I looked at some research. According to a Pew Research, now I'm going to go back a little bit. This is 2014. A long time ago, but guess what? It still rings true. 2014 Pew Research Center report. Here's some information. Republicans and Democrats are more ideologically divided than at any point in the last 2 decades. We get to add a decade to that. Now it's 3 decades. These trends manifest in various ways, both in politics and in everyday life. A survey of 10,000 adults. Now, that's not a lot. It's a very small percentage of the population. But a survey of 10,000 adults nationwide found that these divisions are greatest among those who are the most engaged in the political process. So the share of Americans who express consistency, conservative or liberal opinions has doubled from 10% to 21% over the past 2 decades. I wonder if that number's up again now, because we're talking this was over a decade ago. So over the past 2 decades. So today, which was, again, 11 years ago, 92% of Republicans are to the right of the median Democrat, 92%, and 94% of Democrats are to the left of the median Republican. So beyond ideological consistency, another significant factor in this whole polarization is growing contempt for the opposing party. In other words, disliking the other party just because they're the other party. This isn't anything new, but today these sentiments are deeper. I mean, deep lines drawn in the sand and more widespread. We can take a topic like women's rights, which I think we're going to talk about here a little bit more. Pro-life, pro-choice. No matter where you fall on this spectrum, if you're a Democrat, you should be pro-life. I'm sorry, pro-choice. And if you're a Republican, you should be pro-life. But what if you're a Republican that's pro-choice? Or what if you're a Democrat that's very religious and you're pretty much pro-life? How are we going to vote? Do I get to vote how I want to vote, or do I have to vote down these party lines? And why is this division so bad? It's crazy. We're seeing all this going on with Tesla right now. In the beginning, the interesting thing is, and I think we could probably go back and look at to verify this. This is just a thought. It seems like the majority of people that were driving Teslas were very liberal, very concerned about the environment, looking for clean energy, looking for reducing carbon footprint, that type of person. Generally leans more left, a little more liberal, and they're buying electric cars, Teslas primarily. Now all of a sudden, you've got Doja, or Doji, or however you want to say it, but you have Elon Musk working with the White House to cut government spending, and now all of a sudden, today, stocks have dropped some 70%, or I don't know about stocks, but his profit, Tesla profits dropped by 71%. Their cars are being damaged and destroyed and vandalized all over the country. And who's doing it? Well, it's not the conservatives, it's the liberals that are doing it. And it just cracks me up because, wait a minute, you were the ones that were buying them in the first place. And now you're mad because he's aligned with a Republican. You see what I'm talking about? You see what I'm talking about? This deep line that we draw between right and left and all this political rhetoric. Now, I tend to say that there is someone we can blame for a lot of this. And you know who that's going to be? It's going to be the media. The news media, they love to keep that pot stirred up, right? Keep it going. So, okay. So here's some more information, okay? So how does this affect our daily lives, this whole, left and right thing? So nearly 2/3 of conservatives, and that's 63%, and about half of liberals, and that's about 49%, say most of their close friends share their political views. So not only are we picking a side, but we're making sure that our friends are on the same side. So we're not crossing over anymore. Guys, I don't understand that. A quick story. I'll just tell you, I vote generally, I'm conservative. Generally will vote Republican. I have a friend in Flagstaff who is a Democrat, very liberal, and we have really some different views on some things, but surprisingly, sitting around having a glass of wine or a little shot of whiskey and visiting, we found out that we're not so far apart after all. And Wally is his name. And Wally said to me one day, who'd have ever thought that a left-leaning liberal and a right-leaning Republican would be able to sit down and share a glass together and have a good conversation? That's what we should be doing, I think. We should be having those conversations. And we need to blur those outside lines and stay focused more in the middle, I believe, and really do more good for our country. So, but that's interesting. Among those with mixed ideological values, only 25% say the same. People on both ends of the spectrum prefer living in areas where others share their political views. 50% for conservatives. The conservatives like to hang out together, 50%. 35% for the liberals. They're a little more liberal. They're willing to have a Republican hanging around close by. So, interesting. All right. So, we've got our Democrats, we've got our Republicans, we've got our division, we've got our lines. What's happens in the middle? Who are these Americans that are not really maybe conservative, maybe liberal, but kind of more in the middle? Who are they? So let's talk about it. And there's a Gallup News report, and that's from 2022, so that's just a few years old. Gallup News reported that Americans identify ideologically as 37% moderate. Keep these numbers in mind. 36% conservative, 25% liberal, while moderates have decreased from over 40% in the 90s. The percentage identifying as liberal has grown from 17 to 25%, and the conservatives have remained about the same at 38% on the average. So while many people identify as conservative or liberal, they don't always vote strictly along party lines, right? So look at Obama's election victories as a liberal and then Trump's as a conservative. Think back to the Bush-Gore presidential race. Some of you might remember that, some of you might not. There was some issues in Florida with what they called the hanging shads. So when they were punching the voting ticket, it wasn't punching all the way through. So there was debate. Did they actually push that through, or was that not? Did it clear? Did it not clear? But this race was incredibly close. It really reflected a time when party line voting was really strict. So this Bush-Gore, right down the line. But when you look at Obama as a liberal and then Trump as a conservative, and look at their wins, that tells me, because let's go back up and look at some numbers here. Remember, 37% moderate. So I asked the question early in this, do moderates, do these folks in the middle, do they even count? I think they do. 37% of Americans identify as moderate. Again, 36% conservative, 25% liberal. So when you look at how did President Obama win that election when, generally speaking, only 25% of Americans identify as liberal? How does a liberal win the election so well? Because people were crossing over. People were crossing party lines, and they were voting for a candidate that they felt was the best person. Okay? Now we move to the Trump election. Look at what happened here. We saw a pretty extensive win on the Trump side. What does that tell you? If only about 37% of Americans are identifying as conservative, how did they go north of 50%? Did they pull the middle over, or did they pull over some of the liberal vote? So people are crossing back and forth, but boy, we won't say it out loud, will we? We might go up to the voting machine and vote a certain way, but we're careful about what we say about it. That's interesting. So 2024 Vox, VOX, 2024 Vox report describes the middle this way. A true moderate exists near the center of the spectrum. This person sees merit in both conservative and liberal perspectives. They're likely to be independent or loosely affiliated with a party. If asked about raising the minimum wage, for example, they'd probably suggest a compromise between conservative and liberal positions. So where do you fall? Do you fall left? Do you fall right? Are you far left? Are you far right? Are you somewhere in the middle? Only you can answer that, but think it through. Remember my conversation with Wally. Here's this conservative and this liberal sitting down having actually we went fly fishing a couple times, which was fun. Wally was quite a guy. But we were able to sit down and have these conversations because I think there was a lot of things that were right kind of in that middle that we were talking about. And yeah, there's a little left lean here, a little right lean there, but we spoke a lot about what was in the middle and what really mattered. And I thought that was really interesting to have those type of conversations. And I hope that moving forward in America that we can have those type of conversations and that we can start blurring these party lines or get rid of the party lines completely and let's vote for the candidate. Let's vote for the right person, not the right party. Okay. So I briefly mentioned women's rights, but here's a question. Should the government decide on abortion laws? Or should that be left up to the individual and their doctor? Now, a right-leaning conservative might say, no, states should decide, not the federal government. It's not a federal problem. The state should work on that. We need to focus on doing federal business. The left, on the other hand, might say, yes, the federal government should protect women's rights to ensure consistency across the states and put an umbrella up over the entire country. You know, big government, less government. So when we talk about party division and government's role, I wanted to find out a little bit more. And I took a look on February 2025, so that's pretty new, February 2025, Britannica. This is what I found. Democrats are generally liberal, we all knew that, supporting a larger government role in economic issues, social welfare programs, and progressive taxation. So generally speaking, Democrats or liberals support more government involvement, a bigger government role in economic issues, social welfare programs, progressive taxation. Republicans, on the other hand, are generally very conservative, favoring smaller government, lower taxes, and traditional values. Generally speaking, the Republicans or the conservative groups tend to want government to stay out of their business and just go run the government, lower taxes, and they really want to hold on to the traditional values. You'll hear a lot of discussion about the Constitution and the Founding Fathers and what they believe they wanted or what they saw for the United States. When it comes to division and women's rights, Democrats, again, generally back abortion rights. Republicans generally oppose them. Democrats dominate in cities. We see a lot of that in the bigger cities, a lot of liberal tendencies. Republicans, more in the rural areas. And that makes sense when you go back and look at the liberal belief of supporting a larger government role in economic issues, social welfare programs, progressive taxation, all very much associated with bigger cities. And the Republicans, smaller government, lower taxes, traditional values, kind of out in the country there, a little more rural, just that, hardworking, American, just get out there and make it for yourself instead of the government doing it for you. And which brings me to this. Some describe the difference between Republicans and Democrats as a Republican asks, what can I do for myself? What can I do to make my life better? Well, a Democrat may ask, what can the government do for me? What can the government do to help me make my life better? And it's not completely inaccurate. So, party lines, Democrats, Republicans. Can a no-party democracy work? Can this happen? Well, a 2020 BBC report, and here's something I'm going to just toss this into the mix. If you really want to know what's happening in American politics, you really want to know what people outside of America think, watch the BBC or watch Canadian broadcasting or European broadcasting, because they're not going to play the political games that you see in the American media. The American media, you know it as well as I do. You know which channel you can tune into if you want a liberal point of view or if you want a conservative point of view. You know what channel to tune into. Tune into a channel that doesn't care. Tune into a channel outside of the U.S. where they don't really care about politics. They don't really care. They're just going to report this is the news. And that's my suggestion. So, 2020 BBC report suggests that globally, voters are turning away from traditional political parties. Globally, people are starting to see this. Like, this whole political party thing is ridiculous. Why are we doing it? How about this? You go, hey, Joe, our forefathers, put this Constitution together and fought for our country, and gained our independence. Here's something in 1796. That was a few minutes ago. 1796, President George Washington warned that political factions would lead to, and this is a quote, a frightful despotism, frightful despotism. Wow, terrible pronunciation. What does that mean? I don't even know. So I looked it up. That means the exercise of absolute power, especially in a cruel and oppressive way. So President George Washington in 1796 warned that if you put political parties together, they may or they probably would lead to exercising in absolute power, especially in a cruel and oppressive way. Was he accurate? Interesting. Today, party popularity is at a low point with both U.S. parties, criticized as unrepresentative and elite controlled. Both parties. Whatever happened to you run for Congress, you run for Senate, you make a little money, you do a few years, you make your mark, and you get out. That doesn't happen. That doesn't happen. These politicians get in, they're career politicians. And now, if you're in the House, the Senate, guess what you are? In the Millionaires Club, immediately. How do people that have never worked a day in their lives, they've never done any type of work other than politics, how are they multi-millionaires on political salaries? Pork bellies, right? Okay, the lobbies, you do this favor for me, I'll take care of you. And these are now multi-millionaires. But popularity of parties, it's really declining. In 2018, it was a while ago, but not that long ago, 38% of U.S. voters identified as unaffiliated. 38%. So even if we broke this into thirds and said, well, we have the left, we have the right, and we have the middle. If we broke it into thirds, we'd be at what, 33 and a third? My math-ish. But we're 38% of voters identified as unaffiliated. Wow. Remember our other numbers where we had about 38% conservative and 25% liberal. There's some more crossing over happening. More than those identifying as either Republican or Democrat, 38% unaffiliated. Some political scientists argue that democracy depends on strong, organized political factions. Others believe it's time to move forward toward a system with less mediation by parties and career politicians. Just mentioned that. Career politicians. Get them out. They've been in too long. It's time to retire. Move on. Let some new people in. Bring in some new ideas. We are a changing country. We're growing still. We're not that old. Guys, come on. We're not that old. When you compare American democracy to government systems across the globe, we're pretty young. So we're still growing. So how about the role of the media in the political division? I mentioned this a minute ago already because, I'm a big media fan. Not. So the American media plays a significant role in feeding information to the public. However, and we've seen it, bias reporting has intensified the division. Gone are the days of simple reporting. Now the media outlets want to spin everything around. They want to spin political events to align with their ideological stance. Now, I'm not taking a side. That's liberal, that's conservative. Both sides are doing it. If you turn on CNN and you turn on Fox News and watch them talk about the same political story, you will get two different views. Completely different. And if you don't believe me, do it. You should. If you're a conservative, you should be watching CNN to see what they're saying. And if you're liberal, you should be watching Fox News and see what they're saying. And then you have to take everything that each one of these is saying, throw out 90% of it, and figure that maybe 10% somewhere in the middle is true, maybe. I digress. But they do play a significant role. Gone are the days of the simple reporting. Media outlets just have to put their opinion in on everything constantly. Just tell me the news, tell me the event, and move on. I don't need commentary. I just need the news. Okay, so back to the question. Could we govern without political parties? What if candidates ran solely on their beliefs, solely on their morals and values without a party affiliation? Wouldn't it be refreshing to see an election focused on policy rather than party loyalty? Wouldn't that be great? I could probably see myself listening to a candidate speak and say, this is my stance, this is what I believe in, this is what I see for our future. I don't want to go back where we were. Let's move forward. And here's my ideas. And if I believe in those ideas, why wouldn't they get my vote? But now sometimes don't you feel sometimes maybe you have to follow your party. You have to vote for your party just because the other party is so far out of whack. It doesn't matter which side, right? Whichever side you're on, don't you ever feel like, I got to vote this way because those other guys are crazy? I'd love to just see that go away. And so I thought, why do we have this two-party system? What happened? Where did it come from? So I did a little research because that's what I do. So for the record, a two-party system is not a constitutional requirement. So let's talk about the Constitution and political parties. Political parties are not mentioned in the U.S. Constitution. The two-party system evolved. It just evolved through laws, customs, and party rules because these groups started forming their parties and they're against them and they're against them. And so we're going to have our party rules. So according to history.com, the Constitution's framers distrusted parties. The framers of our Constitution distrusted parties. Alexander Hamilton called them the most fatal disease of popular governments. Alexander Hamilton called party lines the most fatal disease of popular government. George Washington, I mentioned earlier, warned of political factions that would allow cunning, ambitious, and unprincipled men to subserve the power of the people. So are parties just vehicles for personal agendas, right? If I have a personal agenda, which party do I jump on? What am I pushing? Should we break up the two-party system? Because we can do that. We are the people. We the people. Should we just say, you know what, I'm not doing this anymore. I'm not voting that side or that side. I'm going down the middle. I'm going to vote for the right person. I don't know. Wouldn't it be great if any U.S.-born citizen over 35 years old could run for president? I think that's what the Constitution allows. However, show me some 35-year-olds, show me some 45, maybe even some 55-year-olds that could run for president. You can't today without political connections, massive funding, and party backing. If you don't have that party backing, where are you going to go? Look at Ross Perot, who tried to run independent. Look at Robert Kennedy Jr., who just tried to run independent. Where'd it get him? Nowhere. Nowhere, because you got to be a Democrat or you got to be a Republican or forget it. Too bad, because that's really not the way the Constitution was set up. So, interesting. I've asked the questions, put some information out there for you. Can we have a two-party system? Or, I'm sorry, a non-party system? Can our democracy function with a non-party system? I think so. I think it can. I think that's what the framers of our Constitution clearly felt, that we should not have a two-party system. And with a two-party system, are we just dividing the people more along with the government? Are we dividing our government? Are we dividing our people? What are we doing? Are we putting ourselves on an island? I don't know. Can we fix this? Maybe. I think it'll take influential, level-headed, dedicated people to rise up and balance the system. Now, I know you're out there. You are an influential, level-headed, dedicated person, and we need you to rise to the occasion, get into these politics, and take us where we need to go. And let's wipe this two-party system out. Okay, that's it. That's it for this episode. This was episode 13, season 1. I hope I got you thinking. That's what Joe's Hot Takes 25 is all about. Getting us to think, getting us to talk. So, as always, folks, stay curious. It keeps your mind working, keeps you plugged into what's happening in our world. So stay curious, stay informed. It's very important to stay informed. Most importantly, stay kind. Be kind to one another. Okay, be well. I'll see you on the next episode of Joe's Hot Takes 25. Bye for now.